I think there's a very interesting interview which has gone up on social media in the last day or so from JD Vance, and let's hear it for a moment, very quickly.
So I think what this looks like is Trump sits down. He says to the Russians, the Ukrainians, the Europeans, you guys need to figure out what does a peaceful settlement look like. And what it probably looks like is something like the current line of demarcation between Russia and Ukraine. That becomes like a demilitarized zone. It's heavily fortified so the Russians don't invade again. Ukraine remains its independent sovereignty. Russia gets the guarantee of neutrality from Ukraine. It doesn't join NATO. It doesn't join, some of these sort of allied institutions. And I think that's ultimately what this looks like.
So his comments on Donald Trump's proposed peace plan, fleshing it out for Ukraine, suggest a controversial approach that could be seen as literally capitulating to the Kremlin. Vance has outlined a plan that would involve creating a demilitarized zone along the current line of contact between Russia and Ukrainian forces, meaning that Russia would retain control of the Ukrainian territories it currently occupies and that it invaded. And additionally, under this, so that would involve the Ukraine, a large area of the Donbass, and so on. Additionally, under this plan, Ukraine would commit to not joining NATO, effectively guaranteeing Russia's security concerns regarding NATO expansion, and also Vance implies that Europe's role in rebuilding Ukraine would be seriously increased, shifting much of the financial burden away from the US, while equally Ukraine would not be a member of the EU. While Vance acknowledges that Russia should not have invaded Ukraine, he dismissed the idea that the war is a clear-cut battle between good and evil. Instead, he frames US support for Ukraine as being driven by economic interests, particularly in arms manufacturing. And this plan contrasts sharply with the Biden administration's approach, which emphasizes military support for Ukraine to enable its resistance against an invading force. France's framing, however, has raised concerns about the potential long-term consequences for Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I think this is a really shocking preview of what might be under a Trump administration, particularly given the fact that a lot of the constraints which trapped Trump's ambition in his previous term in office are no longer there, and that the 2025 plan, this blueprint, which has so far remained in the background, it is a blueprint for tyranny. And I think people should be worried. And a lot of this blueprint anyway is based on Viktor Orban's ideas of wielding power. And I was amused, of course, in the EU meeting, the EU sort of meeting that I think it was the first minister. It's the first meeting that the Prime Minister attended, and the Eddie Rama, who was poking fun gently at Orban, and I think it wasn't entirely just a joke. I think it was a quite calculated political aside. It is extraordinary, and indeed Trump referenced Orban in his meeting, in his debate with Kamala. This is something to worry about.